Well, Irish fans, it is time for the weekly college football playoff rankings break. Top 25. We got 25 through 1. So we'll start with 25, move through 25 through 20, 19 through 15. 14 through 10, 9 through 5, and then the top 4. Lots of surprises down low, in my opinion. So let's start it right off here. 25th in the country is Arkansas at 7-4. Very surprised there. 24th ranked in the country is Houston at 10-1. 23, we have Clemson, who I think is deservingly so in the top 25. They're 8-3. 22 is UTSA 11-0. 21 San Diego State 10-1. And 20 in the country will be NC State at 8-3. That's a little bit of a shocker too. We'll start with Dylan. Thoughts on 25 through 20?
I like it. Like I said, if you're 25th, you're not ranked. So I don't really care about Arkansas being right there. Houston at 10-1 sets up the sexiness that will be occurring in the championship game in that conference there. Clemson jumping up. I think they deserve to be right there. They deserve to be back in the 25. You look at the 3 losses. One was the best team in the nation. One was the Wake Forest, who was 10. And then you look at the other one, which was an overtime defeat. Was it NC State?
They beat Wake Forest.
They beat Wake.
They beat
last week.
Yeah, that was last week. They lost to NC State and Pitt. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. But either way, Pitt was a good team. They got Pickett. Like, Clemson's losses, I know they probably should have won those games, but still at 8-3, that should be enough to put them in the top 25. I'm not vouching for them to get a bowl game and a big thing like this. I'm just saying top 25 is respectable for them. UTSA, I'm telling you, I picked UAB, and they didn't do me any justice here. So UTSA, keep trucking along there at 22. San Diego State, really good. NC State, another team. You got to put them above Clemson at 8-3 with the head-to-head. So I like that right there at 25-20.
JR, thoughts?
Yeah, Arkansas getting in there, coming off of a loss. Granted, they played, tough at Alabama, but I don't know if that's rewarding. Everything else looks fine. Clemson, they are playing well. Their last 4 games, they seem to have solved the riddle. They're playing really well right now. And like Dylan said, their losses, they're all quality losses. So they're back in. Everything else looks just about right. Houston, maybe a little low for them. They might be worthy of being ranked a little bit higher, but everything else as is.
In my opinion, I'm going to put Houston right at the 20th spot, move NC State down to 21, and then switch San Diego State. Now, put San Diego State right there, that 24th spot, just because of strength of schedule. Like, yeah, Houston hasn't really played anybody, but compared to San Diego State's schedule, makes Houston look like Michigan or Notre Dame. I think in the 25th spot, where's Kentucky? They're 8-3 with 2 of the losses being to South Carolina. Granted, they're playing some good football. Beamer, he's turned it around. Yeah. He has turned it around. They're playing some damn good ball right now. They got upset by 4 points to Tennessee, and then one of those losses being Georgia, who they held Georgia to their second closest game of the year, only getting beat 21-0 on the road to the number 1 team in the land. So I'm putting Kentucky at number 25. But like Dylan mentioned, if you're 25, you're not ranked. So I agree with that. All right, 19 through 15. 19, we have Utah at 8-3. 18, Wake Forest 9-2. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, as JR said a couple weeks ago about Iowa. 17th ranked in the land is Pittsburgh at 9-2. 16 is Iowa at 9-2. And coming in at number 15 of this week's college football playoff is Texas A&M at 8-3. This time we're going to start with JR.
I love Utah, especially at home. They're playing really, really well. I love their coach. I like the kind of football that they play. Texas A&M at 15, boy, the SEC, they get all kinds of love. I don't know if I would have them at 15, but let's be honest, they did just play a really tough game in Prairie View A&M. They looked really strong against such a top-notch opponent so late in the season. So they're probably maybe undervalued and probably should be put in the top 10 after a game like that.
I co-sign with that statement. Prairie View, they're just one heck of a football team led by Juwan Pass, the Louisville quarterback. No, I'm just kidding. I'll own up to it. Prairie View, you got your ass kicked and made me look like a fool. So thank you very much in that area. But I knew it was happening. Whatever. Utah, That was a game that everyone was expecting the upset, and it happened. So I like them pounding the Oregon Ducks. That was fun. Like I said, the head-to-head up in Utah, the last two meetings or whatever, Oregon's beat them Oregon's lost both times. So Utah's been playing good football. Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons, they dropped the game to Clemson, of course. Still 9-2. I like them there. Pitt, they did beat Clemson. They got Pickett. They got some pieces around them. I think 17 fits them there. Iowa's a little bit too high for me just because of Big Ten love, because they're at 16. 9-2 is okay, but they got beat by Purdue. So what does that say? Texas A&M 15. That's a good one there. So I like Texas A&M at 15.
Gary Barta. That's all I got to say is Gary Barta.
Does Barta vote, or does he just run the committee?
I think he just runs the committee, but
I don't think he votes.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he's the head of the committee. Who's going to put his team and not ranked and get their ass chewed out from him? Nah. All right. Iowa. I don't even know what the logic is here. They have really two bad losses. I don't know. Pitt, they're a little underrated in my opinion. That offense is really clicking. They're obviously going to steamroll whoever they play in the ACC championship, in my opinion. I don't really have any issues with 19 through 15. 14th in the land. Look at Wisconsin. After a 1-3 start, they have won 7 in a row and are now 8-3 on the year. They're 14th in the country. And then at 13, we have the Brigham Young Mormons, 9-2, Michael Jackson's favorite school. 12, we have Michigan State, 9-2. This is really a shocker to see only falling to 12th after an embarrassing 2 losses. 11th ranked in the land is Oregon, 9-2. And number 10, back in the top 10, are the Oklahoma Sooners at 10-1. Dylan, we're starting with you this time.
Yeah, when you look at this list, you see Wisconsin down at 14. I love that. I absolutely love that, because that helps us out big time. In us, I mean Notre Dame, because that's one of the big victories that they have this year. BYU sitting at 13. I think it's respectable. To JR's point, I think it's nice that you could maybe find a way to put one more game there with Notre Dame BYU. That'll give you a win against 13 and 14 if you could pull that one out of your hat, and that would be good, and it would probably lock them into a spot in the playoffs. So I like that. Michigan State, I don't think you could move them any lower. I think 12's right where they should be. Oregon off the loss, I was curious to see how far they dropped. 11 seems formidable there. And Oklahoma with 1 loss, once again, given a top 10 game for Oklahoma State. That makes sense in eyes of television ratings.
JR.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe Wisconsin's maybe a little undervalued at 14. I'd maybe slot them up a little bit higher, but you're running out of room at this point. There's not many other places that you could slot some of these teams. You look at the whole body of work with, Oregon and Michigan State, you're probably going to have to slot them ahead of a 3-loss Wisconsin team. But in terms of, the eye test and how they're playing right now, I would probably put Wisconsin in front of both of those teams. And kind of going back to Iowa, the style of football that they play is just not sexy. So, are they ranked a little too high? Probably, but I don't think they're playing very well either. So, again, you're just running out of spaces to slot some of these teams. So it is what it is.
Right. At this point, it really is what it is. We only got 2 weeks left of the regular thing, and then the big one comes out, which that's truly the only one that matters, in my opinion. I really have no dispute here. Oregon took an embarrassing loss. They have a really embarrassing loss to Stanford. Michigan State, 2 really embarrassing losses. You get beat by Purdue to Purdue by 2 scores, and then you get absolutely embarrassed on the road or against Ohio State. That's pretty embarrassing. BYU, they're right where they should be. They really haven't been impressive. Wisconsin, they're a little, like JR mentioned, they're a little underrated. That defense is really shaped up. They're playing good, and they're going to the
Heisman candidate quarterback too.
Yeah, Mercer. they're going to the Rose Bowl this year because they're going to lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Hint, hint. And then because Ohio State's going to go to the playoff, they'll be in the Rose Bowl. So good win on Notre Dame's schedule there. Biggest win of the year.
I know I said earlier in the show that Notre Dame should reach out to BYU and see if they can't schedule a game on championship weekend. Is there something that prohibits Swarbrick from being and BYU from being able to do that on championship weekend? Do you guys know? I know it's too late to probably do it this year, but next year, why can't we schedule a game that weekend, even if it's a lesser opponent? Imagine being able to play that game championship weekend, and you play a 13 and you knock them off in dominating fashion, and we're sitting behind Cincinnati, and we beat somebody like that. That may end up being able to propel us in front of somebody like Cincy.
You know what? That has been in talks. I've heard it in talks before because this is a controversial topic. Actually, a couple of years back, I remember talks of scheduling a 13th game. Swarbrick actually did make a statement about it one time. I can't remember his thoughts on it, but I don't think it'll ever happen. I think it's a deal with the NCAA and stuff just because, it's specifically conference championship weekend. But I would love to see it. I would love, as you mentioned, I would love to see us play a team like BYU. They're independent. They're not playing anybody. Let's play them.
Even if we took a second bye to have that final game on the last weekend of the season, to be able to compare against some of those championship games,
right?
They say the last impression is the most lasting. So, there's a benefit and a plus to not being in a conference, and that's a negative of not being able to participate that weekend.
Yeah,
Indeed. All right. Here we go. What I say? 9 through 5 here, guys. Ninth in the country is Ole Miss, coming in at 9-2. Lane Train, keep on chugging along. 8th ranked is Baylor, 9-2. 7th ranked Oklahoma State at 10-1. And number 6 is Notre Dame at 10-1. And number 5 is Michigan at 10-1. This time we are starting with JR. Thoughts on 9 through 5?
They love the SEC. Ole Miss, they are probably better than Oklahoma, but I would probably put Oklahoma in front of Ole Miss simply because they only have one loss and Ole Miss has 2. Other than that, I think everything looks the way that it should. I'm concerned about Oklahoma State jumping us, which goes back to my last point about the a lasting impression on the final weekend of the season. But everything else looks right. Michigan's going to take care of itself, or Ohio State. Don't sleep on that game, I guess. An upset could happen, but it's not likely to happen. So, Notre Dame's sitting at 6. We're right where we should be. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, Dylan, go ahead.
I'll start at 9. I went out with my buddy last night. Big Florida fan. He wants the Lane Train down to Gainesville. I told him that's not going to happen. But anyway, you look at 9-5. I love every single team in this spot. Not a big Baylor fan. I mentioned it many times on the show. I think they're due to get mollywopped, as some would say. I think that this is going to be a pretty good list so far. Oklahoma State, I'm telling you. Logan's mentioned Oklahoma State a lot on this show. A lot of things need to go right for Notre Dame to get in. Oklahoma State has to win and lose and split and do some crazy stuff for Notre Dame to have a chance. Because otherwise, if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma and then goes to their championship game, wins that one too, they will probably leapfrog Notre Dame. So that's one area where I'm a little bit concerned as opposed to weeks that follow. But right now, 7, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame at 6. I love it as long as Notre Dame is above Oklahoma State. And after this weekend, we'll see what happens with Michigan, Ohio State. But I like Michigan at 5 because they're not going to be there after this week.
It's getting interesting, to say the least, guys, as we approach the big one. You have an Oklahoma State team. They got Bedlam this weekend. You got Baylor. They got who's Baylor? Is it Texas Tech? Is it? I think it's Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Got Ole Miss, Mississippi State this week. Egg Bowl. You got Michigan, the game, Cincinnati. I'm not even sure who the hell they're playing.
They got a bye.
No, they play East Carolina.
Really?
Yeah, I was about to play it.
They got a bye.
Oh. I got it. Were you actually kidding? Is that what you were meaning, Dylan?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I physically thought they had a bye. I apologize.
All right. Well, I really have no dispute with 9 through 5. If you check my Facebook, I actually have the same exact top 10 as the College Football Playoff Committee. So kudos to me there. All right. Well, that does it for this week's. I forgot. Wow.
The one that people like to talk about the most. You kind of forgot that one.
Yeah, I know. Number 4 in the country, you have Cincinnati coming in at 11-0. 3, Alabama 10-1. 2 is Ohio State at 10-1, and number 1 is Georgia at 11-0. So 1 change, 2 changes, 3 changes. You got Ohio State at 2, Bama drops at 3, and then Cincinnati for the first time this year in the top 4. We'll start with Dylan.
Yeah, I thought Alabama would stay at 2. I seriously did. I didn't think Ohio State would jump them, but then again, they did have the big win against Michigan State, who forgot to get off the bus. But I mean, that's interesting. And then to see Cincinnati, I figured they'd be at 4. But Georgia, Alabama, that's what it comes down to. Everyone knows that they meet the SEC championship, and will a 2-loss Bama, will a 12-1, 11-1, whatever, freaking Oklahoma State get in? Will Notre Dame get in? Will Michigan beat Ohio State? A lot of scenarios that will change this list. I do not think in the slightest this will be the list as the season goes on. So right now, I think if you're looking at the date that is the 24th of November, this is the right list.
Jared, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I could probably spend a little bit more time on Lando's top 10 Thanksgiving menu power rankings than I could here, but it's about right. I suspected that Ohio State would jump Alabama, but everything's going to take care of itself. These rankings aren't going to stay the way that they are for the next couple of weeks, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Back to the Thanksgiving picks. Cranberry sauce. That's terrible.
This guy's unbelievable.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Why am I unbelievable? I like Thanksgiving. It's food.
Everyone loves Thanksgiving and food, but your rankings were horrible.
They were not horrible.
How is ham at 6?
Ham? Because ham is a Christmas Eve dish, not a Thanksgiving dish. Turkey.
Oh, I was unaware with the old dish thing.
Okay.
You lost me at sweet potato casserole at 3.
Yeah,
that shouldn't even be in the top 10.
You like baby food, Lando?
Yeah, you could feed that. You could feed that to the dogs for all I'm care. Sweet potato casserole at 3. Oh my lord!
You guys are nuts. You gotta.
Did Barta make that list?
Oh,
yeah, that's like Iowa too.
That's terrible. That is terrible. You know what? You gotta come up to Bob's, try his little sweet potato casserole one time. If you don't like it, go. All right.
You're throwing him a bone because he was giving you crap about not being on the podcast.
That does it for this week's edition of the College Football Playoff Top 25 breakdown, and apparently Turkey Talk, new segment, Turkey Talk. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you next week.